And now he goes bishop h7.
What the heck
What?
is this?
And
That
this
so
is apparently
strange.
not
Oh,
good.
it's a bad move.
So this is a really tense contest between Shak Mamedyarov with white here and Nodirbek Abddussattorov with black. It's the Global Chess League, and the final moments of this insane game are just so painful to watch. But let's check it out from the start. We can learn so much as always. So Shak kicks off with c4, and after these opening moves, we soon head down a Queen's Gambit declined. Seen many times before, including this exchange variation here, and this is now known as the Carlsbad pawn structure. Carlsbad with a C. So bishop g5, c6, all very standard. And now if you go queen c2 here, which is a common move, then you prevent bishop f5. But Shak starts with e3, really normal looking move, but it does give black this extra option of bishop f5. And the most common response for white is this one. And this is how the main line goes. You actually shatter the pawns. You do give up the bishops, but you get that nice pawn structure. Carlsen once won a very famous game from here against Kramnik, real positional masterpiece. But what we see in this game from Shak is knight g to e2. A rarer move, but common in these structures. You do leave the way for the f-pawn, and that knight can hop here or sometimes here. Very flexible setup. So knight b to d7, knight g3 hits the bishop, it drops back, and now bishop f4. So black did spend two tempos there. White is therefore kind of justified with their two tempos. Why is it coming here? Well, it stops bishop d6. You know, this one now supported this one. Okay, white still has a small edge. Knight b6 from Nodirbek. Now he does look here, but he also goes on this journey later on, which I find quite interesting. Nice remaneuver, then looking at e4. We get bishop d3, this bishop comes to d6, and now instead of the kind of standard looking captures, Shak drops back with this knight, supports that bishop on f4, which looks nice, but he hasn't yet castled the king, and there's no pawn a3. So after check, what are you doing? Coming back, losing your tempo? Well, no. Shak goes king f1, and he's here for a fight, right? Not castling the king. Maybe this is home prep, but we've got an exciting game on our hands, of course. So castles by Nodirbek. Now pawn h3, takes away this square from some minor pieces, maybe even looks to castle the king by hand. So we see the bishop back to d6, its job was done, ruining the castling rights. We get queen c2, classic battery, pressuring on that pawn, and now bishop takes here, knight takes, and this one drops back, going on that journey that I was mentioning earlier on. And now, if you take this bishop here, which is on offer, kind of ruin the pawns a bit, well, you are opening the f-file. Your king is still on the f-file, not castled, and there's some dynamic attacking chances for black in that position. So instead, Shak hops with this knight, looks to trade this one, which is defending the king, you know, covering this pawn. We see takes, knight recaptures, but now the queen bounces out, hits this knight, and that's why we don't see takes here with check, because after the king sidesteps, you're going to have some problems with both of those minor pieces. So Shak just steps back with the knight. Knight d6 carries on the maneuver. You know, the queen now covers this pawn. It's all good. g3 kicks that queen. It drops back to h6, and now king g2. So Shak's got that king to some relative safety, and now he starts squeezing on both sides of the board. So Nodirbek drops back that light squared bishop, decides now with the king a bit safer, he doesn't want to give it. It could still participate in an attack later, plus covers this pawn in the event of a minority attack and an exchange here. And after pawn h4 from Shak, it also clears the e-file for this rook to activate. So we see pawn a4. Now this is one of the other big ideas for white, the minority attack. So you launch these two pawns against these three pawns, trying to go like this and this, that kind of thing, induce a weakness and then gang up on it. So knight e4 played, classic central counterplay. We see pawn b4, queen d6, pressuring that pawn, and the pawn kicks on to b5. But the problem here for Nodirbek is you feel like he's playing without a plan, sort of thrashing around, because in this position he goes rook to c8, but it was always already kind of tricky to play. Like knight f6 was one of the top moves suggested, trying to keep that knight. And here white actually could take, the computer says this is fine, and you pick up the pawn. Obviously the computer loves material, but I can understand why Shak didn't do this, because you've now opened this diagonal towards your king. Black's got a light squared bishop. Now the computer's just completely unafraid, because it says you can take here and meet bishop c6 with d5, big advantage to white. But okay, humanly, looks scary to give your light squared bishop open towards the king. So instead, we see Shak take on c6, the rook recaptures, and now queen b3. Simply hits two pawns. They can't both be defended, and so Nodirbek now just goes to muddy the waters, counterplay. So he jumps, knight d2, hits that queen. The queen could take here, top computer move. Again, maybe Shak just didn't want to open up down here towards the king. So instead, he takes on b7, still a good move, and he's eyeing this pawn now, which would then free up this one, which is already a long way advanced. So we see bishop g4. Nodirbek has to go for counterplay against that white king. This rook comes to the c-file, challenging that strong piece. And again, Nodirbek must have been thinking, well, if I capture and Shak takes back, I'm giving him all the initiative, I'm killing my attack. So he goes check first, king moves, then rook b6, gives a second pawn just to invade with this rook, try and get that play against the king. So rook c2, interposes, changes off that powerful active black rook. Good move. Bishop recaptures, pawn h6 now played. Ideas of g5 on the cards. You want to rip open things, try and get at the white monarch. We see queen a5 from Shak, hits the knight on d2, it drops back into c4, and now Shak comes to c5, offering that queen exchange. If the queens are gone, where's the attack? White's two pawns to the good, and an outside running passer. So Nodirbek, understandably, goes for queen d7, looking at the light squares, but Shak had an amazing tactic here, but he just gets it in the wrong order, as we're going to see. So painful. So can you find the best move here for white, which kind of ends the game on the spot? Big material advantage. So the move to play is bishop h7 check. And you're simply distracting that king, and then you pick up this bishop on f8. White's good there. You can go queen f5 and look to invade and that kind of thing. But okay, that should never be a checkmating attack. But what we see instead is Shak offers that queen exchange once again. The queen ducks it, the queen offers it again, the queen ducks back again, and now we see rook to b1, coming to an open file. Very nice, okay, to an extent, although the rook was sitting nice behind the pawn. But here's the big problem, because now there's a shot for black, which Nodirbek finds. He goes with this pawn to g5, and suddenly everything is different, because not only are you starting to rip open the white king, but you've just given the black king a crucial square on g7, which stops all these tactics. But what does Shak do here? He executes the move. He should have done a move earlier, and this is where we get the reaction of the commentators.
And now he goes bishop h7.
What the
Whoa.
heck is this?
And this is apparently not good.
Oh, it's a bad move.
So Shak plays the bishop down to h7 check, king g7, and probably what he missed from afar in the time trouble is that he doesn't have knight h5 check, because if the bishop wasn't here on f3 able to take that piece, then the king would have to go. Suddenly you're sitting pretty, you can check from f6, pick up the queen. You've also got this one, of course, and then threatening mate, completely game over. But the big problem, black just snaps it off. So when you don't have knight h5, you simply have to move this piece. It drops back to h3, and then we see rook c8 from Nodirbek, hitting the queen, asking it to move. It's no longer now attacked, and therefore preparing to just pick up this bishop on the next move. Now the moves actually stopped transmitting at this point, so it says that Nodirbek won here, Shak lost at this moment. That's not actually true. They played on some more moves, But long story short, Nodirbek did win the material and go on to convert that in the game. And these are the final tragic moments for Shak.
This is what happens when you get in time trouble. It happens to the best of us. I mean, wow.
I would never have
Turntables.
thought the pressure could get
turn.
Shak to such a degree.
Queen under attack. It's a missed queen.
Okay, Shak.
Because he could
Oh
play
my
bishop to
goodness.
g4 and bishop to f5 was better there, I believe.
Okay.
Oh,
like, what did I
Shak is
do?
so disappointed.
And there's
Shak
not
has
moves
not
coming
happened.
in.
Yeah, Shak is
Unfortunately,
now
we're
a
not
piece
getting
down in
moves.
the end game, and his king is also very, very unsafe.
And what this now means is we've got the Triveni Continental Kings against the Upgrad Mumba Masters in the final, being played tomorrow on the 2nd of July, with the two icons surprisingly being Levon Aronian and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. So no Vichy featuring, no Magnus featuring, the SP Alpine Warriors, you know, they just fell short. Really exceptional finish to this great tournament. I hope you enjoyed this one. Do subscribe to never miss a future and check out the video on screen for another epic game of chess. Thanks very much for watching and see you soon.